Hello, my name is Nikki from BunnyCrafts Oxford and welcome to my very first podcast. Hopefully not my last one. I think the plan is that I will record a couple of videos, and if you like what you see, you can subscribe, click the thumbs up and also click the bell icon so that you don't miss the next few videos that hopefully will come out throughout January and February. I've thought about what to say for weeks now. This is quite scary, and because I'm literally just talking to myself. All I can see is myself talking at the screen, and I keep reacting to myself. This is take 4, 5, something like that. So yeah, as you can see, I am a blubbering hot mess, which I think is just the current state of the world right now. And today I just would like to introduce myself, give you a rough idea of what I would like to do on this channel, and show you a little video of one of my main crafts or things that I like to do really. So my name is Nikki, as I already said, and I live in Oxford with my partner. You may notice there's a bit of an accent, and that is because I'm originally from Bulgaria, but I have lived in the UK for 20 years. It'll be 20 years this June, so a very long time. I've lived in Oxford for the majority of this time, and I work at the university here. There's several universities, but I work at, the big one that most people have heard of, and as an administrator. And in my spare time I make things. I mainly make things out of yarn. I knit, I crochet, I love making amigurumi, I love knitting clothes. Socks are currently a particular obsession, and I plan to show you a few of those if you'll let me. Why am I doing this? I think I will say a bit more about why I decided to do a podcast, a vlog, a fibercast, to use the Fiber Hustles term that they coined. And I will link anyone that I mention in the show notes below. But I think we've all really struggled over the last year with communicating with people. I miss meeting people. I miss talking to people. I'm a talker, as you've already found out, and I think this is a great opportunity to share something that I love with people that I know will love it back. If I go down to the pub or go to the coffee shop with my friends, not all of them like knitting or crafting. They really couldn't care less about yarn. So it's nice to have other people to talk to about this. I do have my Hook Club, which is a bunch of amazing ladies that we meet every other Wednesday, and they're awesome, but it's not enough. I need more yarn, and I think most of you will understand what I mean. So what is the idea behind this channel? I want to do a couple of different things. My main craft, and what BunnyCrafts Oxford is an independent yarn dyeing business. I'm not sure you can call an Etsy shop a business, but that's kind of what I'm trying to do. So as part of that, I wanted to do some come and dye with me videos, and I'm gonna giggle every time I say that because English, dye and dye. But yeah, so, and this is what this first video is going to be. After I'm done talking, I'm going to show you how I dye one of my favorite colorways called Pistachio, and I'm just gonna pop it up. It's right here. So Pistachio is this beautiful variegated yarn, and I'll show you a little bit at the end of the video as well, after I show you how I dye the colorway. The other side of it that I would like to do is called Let's Chat Over a Cup of Tea. this being England, it has to be a cup of tea. Although with me, it will almost always be coffee. I am an absolute coffee fiend. I love coffee and I drink it at any time of the day. Although with age, I've had to switch to decaf after 4 in the afternoon because otherwise sleep becomes a bit awkward to get to. But yeah, so over a cup of tea is just going to be me chatting, showing you some of the things that I've made recently, things that are on my needles or on my hook, projects that I would like to try out. I would really like to be able to share with you some of the amazing other crafts people that I've come across. So other indie yarn dyers, of which I follow quite a few, and I buy quite a few of their yarns because they are glorious and gorgeous. But I don't want to just do yarns. There are a lot of people that just do beautiful things like greeting cards. They make lovely blankets, or you know, amigurumi, which if no one knows what amigurumi is, it's the little crochet or knit toys. You know, something like Pikachu and Pokemon are quite popular, and in my shop you'll see a little baby Yoda that I should have brought up with me, but I didn't, so I'll show you that next time. Yeah, so I want to share that with you. I want to show you people that you may not have come across on the internets and Instagrams and all of these wonderful social medias that I think, you know, need to be shouted about and need to be supported. And finally, the other thing that I would like to do is actually maybe learn together. So I've been knitting or crocheting since I was about 5. My grandma taught me how to knit, but she literally just taught me how to do a very simple cast on, which I don't even use anymore because it is just awful. I have no idea how she makes her cast on actually not end up just being loopy and horrible, but I guess, you know, she's 86, so practice, lots of practice. But yeah, so she taught me how to cast on, and she taught me how to do garter stitch, and then obviously from garter stitch you can do stocking knit, and that was about it. And with crochet, she taught me, hey, here's a crochet hook, here's a bit of yarn, here's how you do a chain, and the rest of it I figured out along the way. So while I have been knitting and crocheting for nigh on 30 years, there's a lot of techniques that I don't know that I would love to learn. So things like brioche, I am terrified of brioche, but I love the way it looks. So I thought what we can do is each over tea with me episode, I keep changing the name, I'll figure out what the name is and try and remember to say it properly. I will pick a small pattern, possibly from Ravelry, or, you know, something that's free, or at least hopefully free, that doesn't require, you know, tons of yarn and 4.5 years to complete, that teaches you the technique, and then we can maybe knit it together, crochet it together, and we can share it in the following episode. So this is the idea behind what I want to do. I'm going to stop talking in a minute, and I'm going to take you over to the video that I have shot earlier on how I dye pistachio, and then I will be back to say my goodbyes, but also to show you the finished skein of pistachio, what it actually looks like, and I'll also see if I can figure out how to edit some photos of what it looks like when it's knit up and what crocheted, so that you see the final product. Alright, let's get to dyeing some yarn. I will be using Dharma acid dyes, and therefore you can see I'm showing you I will be using my respirator mask, gloves, and I wear glasses, but I would recommend that you use goggles with the powder dyes. Even if you're just diluting them into a solution with water, whenever you're working with acid dyes, do make sure that you're wearing full protective gear, And also all of the pots and spoons that you're going to see me use are specific to dyeing. I do not use them at all for food, and they actually stay outside of you know, a kitchen or any area where they may be mistaken for food. So you will watch me sprinkle dye on the yarn. I'm already going in with the first colour, and so I go directly into the jar that I have of the dye, and then just tap the spoon gently to sort of sprinkle it on the yarn, and then with my metal spoon I will press it down and move it around to get the colour, the pigment into the yarn. The yarn has been pre-soaked for about half an hour in some tap water, no particular amount of tap water, and 4 tablespoons of white vinegar. I prefer to use vinegar to citric acid for my pre-soak. It's just easier for me to measure it for some reason. And then I use the pre-soak for the water that you see in the pan, in the kettle, so it's quite low immersion, because I wanted to have access to some of the yarn when I sprinkle on, and see if I can get some speckles. But in the end, it's not really a speckly yarn, and I think that's actually better for it. 4 tablespoons of acid is kind of the regular amount that I use. It's still quite high, so the pigments will bind to the yarn quite quickly once you get the heat going as well. And I could have gone with no acid at all to begin with if I wanted to have a more even tone, but I wanted this yarn to be quite tonal. I wanted there to be quite a lot of different tones of each of the colours that I use, and that is why I upped the acid volume. They are 2 skeins of 100 grams DK 75 25 superwash yarn in there. So 75% merino, 25% nylon, and they are quite scrunched up and bunched up. I could probably put 3 skeins in there, but then it would be really difficult to get penetration through the fibres, and I'd probably have to flip the yarn a lot, and I didn't want to have to do that with this colourway. I wanted to apply the colour, and you see me just prodding with the spoon and kind of separating the fibres to try and get the dye to get as far down to the bottom to the other side of the yarn as I can. And I'll move the dye around within the area that I've spread it as much as I can, you know, to get it to cover as much of the fibre in one go as possible. But because of the way that the yarn is bunched up, it does mean that even though the 2 skeins are dyed together, they are not going to be identical. So it's not a colourway that you would get if you wanted to do 2 identical socks, for example. You know, with self-striping yarn and things. This doesn't even really micro stripe because of the how close the colours are together. The other thing that I'd like to mention, you can see it happening on screen, especially with the green that I'm putting in right now, which is avocado. So both the greens that I use react to either the heat or the acid differently. So the lighter green that is at the very bottom, I know that looks really yellow on screen, that is heat reactive. So the more heat that you get through the yarn, the more the green comes through, and the sort of greener it gets. I mean, it's quite a yellow green anyway, but that's what happens. The other one, the one at the top, or in the middle of the yarn as it is, that's avocado. That's a colour that breaks, which means that it can separate into the individual colour molecules that make it up. And so if you were to dip dye this slowly, you would actually end up with like a really pretty sort of bluey at the top, and bottom will be green. Sometimes you get a bit of brown with it if it's if you turn it into stock solution. Then yeah, it gets a bit funny. So you can see at the top of the screen it's really, really blue, and then at the bottom where there's a sort of center where there's more heat as well, it's already quite green. And that's a combination of both the heat and also the amount of acid. So some color molecules bind to the yarn quicker than others, and blue is one of the color molecules that will take the longest to bind. Yellow is also a color that takes quite a while to bind to the yarn as a pigment. The following color that I have on there, I think it's either called Merlot or Cabernet. It's named after a wine, and I keep forgetting which one it is, and I keep mistaking them. And it's a really pigmented color, and I remember as I put it in, I panicked that I may have actually put a bit too much, because it is one of those colors where a little goes a long way. And then the final one is a brown. What's really, really funny is all of the colors that go into this yarn are named after foods for Dharma. So from the first color to the last that I sprinkled, they are pistachio, plum dandy, avocado, Cabernet or Merlot. I think it's Cabernet. And the final, the brown one, is called olive brown. So yeah, it's quite a foodie orientated colorway. So I'm now just going to pat, you'll see me sort of pat the yarn just to see how much of the color has absorbed, and I will just prod it and keep checking it. I will cover it to get some more heat into it. I need to get a lid for this pan. At the moment I don't have a lid, so I keep reusing these pieces of foil because I don't like wasting it. And so once I'm satisfied with the color and I've added all the color that I want to the sides, I'm going to leave the yarn for about 10 to 15 minutes so that the color can absorb, and I will keep checking to see whether the water has cleared. And once the water is clear or pretty clear, I will flip the yarn over. I'll make sure that it is arranged so that the color stripes match what you see on this side. You'll see the other side will be significantly more pastel. It will not be as pigmented, so we'll need to add a little bit of color. This yarn does look really pigmented when it is wet. It looks really, really dark, but when it dries up, the colors just come alive. It's just so beautiful. And yeah, I will also add a bit more vinegar at some point. I think I add a total of another either 4 or 6 tablespoons of vinegar to the yarn, and that's because the Cabernet is actually quite a difficult color for me to get to set, and vinegar will help set the yarn. So I will flip it, I will add the rest of the pigment, I will add the rest of the vinegar, and I think I actually added in several stages. I think I had some before I flip the yarn, and then I add some more after I'm done adding any more color to the other side. And once I've added, I'm done with the color, I do actually add enough water to completely cover the yarn as well. And the reason that I do that is because I'm using the powder dye directly, and even though I'm tapping it along and I'm moving the yarn quite a bit, there is still the opportunity, the chance that some of that dye might not dissolve properly. And then when you go and wash the yarn, you end up with some bleeding, and it can be quite a stressful and panicky moment, and requires a lot more rinsing if you have some undissolved dye left in the yarn, which does actually happen quite a bit if you go straight in with the powder, or at least it does for me. Maybe I just need to be a bit more careful and a lot less trigger happy with the powder. So once I'm done and I'm happy, I will, as I said, cover the yarn with water, leave it for about 20-25 minutes, and then I will let it cool completely in the pan. So I usually leave it overnight, and this means that it just has that time to cool down for the colour to truly bind to the yarn, and then next day I will rinse it. When I rinse my yarns, I will do 4 or 5 rinses, where the second rinse will be with a little bit of just clear washing up liquid, or for some yarns I will use wool wash. For others I don't necessarily use wool wash. So if one of my yarns has purple pop, which is a renowned colour in the dyeing community, then I will not use wool wash at all, and I will actually label that yarn as, if you use any sort of soap, it will bleed. Purple pop just bleeds. I mean, it bleeds with the slightest hint of warmth in the water. It bleeds with the slightest hint of soap in the water. It's a really difficult colour for me, so I don't use it very often. I'm still learning how to use that colour. So yeah, I will rinse it. I will use a little bit of just the tiniest amount of washing up liquid, just to see whether it will bleed, because if I see that it bleeds with the washing up liquid, then I will then take the yarn and put it back in an acid bath. So usually, 8 to 16 cups of water and 8 tablespoons of vinegar, and I will leave it there for 12 hours, 24 hours. And if it still is bleeding, then I will set the yarn again by heating it a second time. And then if it's still bleeding, I have no idea what I've gone wrong. I've never had this happen. I've only ever had to do an acid bath once, and that was entirely my fault because I oversaturated the yarn with dye and it just needed to come out. Which does happen on occasion when you're trying out new pigments. You don't know how saturated they are, and so on and so forth. Anyway, I will let you watch the rest of the video, and I will be back to show you the finished yarn. Hello and welcome back to me. You have just listened to me tell you about how I dye pistachio. While this is not currently my most popular colorway, that is Christmas Carol, and I will show you Christmas Carol in the next episode of Come and Dye With Me. I told you, I cannot say it without giggling. It is definitely one of my favourites. I love the greens, I love the sort of raspberries and deep wine colours and tones that go through this. So earlier I showed you what the skein is twisted, and then here it is untwisted. So it is, I mean, you can see when I stretch it out that it is dyed in the kettle like so, and each colour just kind of goes along the yarn as I dye it. It has a total of 5 colours running through it, and it's just when you twist it up and you look at it all together, it made me think of pistachios. In fact, I'm lying here. It didn't make me think of pistachios, it made my partner Tom think of pistachios. And he is usually the person that names most of my yarns, because I'll be like, look what I've made. And he'll be like, oh yeah, that looks like a sunset or a pistachio. So the skein that you're looking at right now is not actually the one that you saw me dyeing. This is the very first one that I ever dyed. And it is on a 75-25 sock merino nylon blend. So it's a fingering weight yarn, and yeah, you can see, so this is coming out a little bit pinker than actually is on the camera. The greens are awesome. This is sort of merlot-y colour, and then there's nice brown in the end, which kind of gets really speckly because this brown catches really quickly. It binds to the yard really quickly. I do have the second skein of the one that I did dye, which is the DK1, but I have folded up. So you can see I've started to try something and then decided not to. I don't like the stitch that I was working on, so I frogged it. But yeah, so if you notice the DK, they're both superwash yarns, but DK tends to take the color a lot more. So the DK comes out just a little bit brighter and more saturated. I'm just gonna hide my face so that it focuses properly. But yeah, so this is pistachio and I absolutely love it, and it is really, really squishy. So the DK is also on my 75-25% superwash base, but I do have other bases as well. And yeah, so this is my lovely yarn. I was actually going to take this opportunity to ask you a question. This is my skein, mine. I have dyed it for me. And I want to knit something with it, but I have too many ideas. And I think because it is just the one 100 meter yarn ball yarn cake, it's either maybe like a scarf or a cow. I would like to knit a cow, but I can't decide which one. I was going to do something with seed stitch and maybe actually pair it with just a plain white base, because I think, doesn't it look lovely? Just the white and the pistachio, I think the contrast would be glorious. But yeah, so if anyone has any ideas of what I can do with this so that I can just wear it all the time, I love these colours and I want to wear them all the time, do let me know. I did think about doing them in a yoke in a sweater, but I've done so many sweaters in the last 3 months. I've test knit a few sweaters and I'm currently finishing a test knit that I hope to be able to talk to you about in beginning of February, when I'm allowed to talk about it. That I just couldn't face another sweater. I could not face another, 6-7 scheme project that takes the most ginormous project back. Anyway, I digress, which I do a lot, as you will continue to find out. So I am going to bid you adieu. I do hope that you enjoyed your time here, and if you did and you want to see more of this kind of content, then please subscribe, hit the like button because that really helps, and also don't forget the notification bell so that you don't miss any other videos. If you do want to keep supporting beyond just subscribing, you can go buy me a coffee. I will put the link to that below. I will also put the link to my Instagram, where you can find me if you just want to see the day-to-day madness that is my crafting life. And I also put a link to my Etsy shop. If you love pistachio as much as me and you want a skein, you can order. All of my yarn is dyed to order, so once you order it, it will be unique to you. And yeah, hope you enjoy. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon. Bye.